everyone. My name is Rich Longo, and I'll be your host for today's presentation. Our webinar today is How Enterprise Service Management Can Help Your Organization, presented by Flycast Partners' own Chuck Spencer. Now, Chuck started with Flycast Partners last year to help build and expand our process improvement offerings for our existing and future business partners. As our new enterprise service practice lead, he came to us with a very accomplished background that includes Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, an ITIL V3 expert with multiple certifications, including ISO 20000 Manager and Consultant, COBIT 5, PMP, Agile Scrum Master, and Change Management Practitioner. Chuck has well over 25 years of experience in improving and implementing service management processes to drive quality, efficiency, and customer satisfaction. He's an innovative and results-oriented senior technology leader with progressive experience in all phases of service management, project, process management, enterprise technology support, organizational leadership, and strategic development. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and introduce Flycast Partners. We are here to deliver a seriously amazing IT experience, founded and staffed by personnel that have many years of experience in the IT space. We took the best ideas from the collective experiences and added the best components necessary to grow and become the leading value-added reseller in the North American IT market. We offer best-in-class implementation services and training in ITSM, ITAM, and workload automation spaces using ITIL best practices. Our professional services can easily scale up or down in order to meet the IT needs of any customer, regardless of size, complexity, or budgetary restrictions. We offer implementation services both on-site and remote, as well as training to reinforce your company's long-term IT success. Our ongoing administrative and support service offerings will enable your organization to focus on your normal day-to-day operations. Take some time to go look at our website at www.flycastpartners.com, or feel free to call us at 844-FLYCAST, that's 844-359-2278. And this is just one of our many weekly webinars. We encourage you to sign up for future webinars and to utilize our website for researching everything from industry white papers to training that we provide for ITIL to ITSM and ITAM tools, or if you're looking for assistance with your processes or need a process evaluation, go to our website, check out what we offer, and give us a call, and we'll be more than happy to help you through that. Our professional services can do pretty much anything that you need within your organization, from your business operations to your IT department. We help you align both those goals into one for you going forward. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to none other than Chuck Spencer.
Well, thank you, none other than Rich Longo. I'd like to thank everyone else too I'd like to thank everyone else too for taking some time out of your schedule today to talk with us about enterprise service management and how it might be able to help your particular organization. Before we do that, let's talk about what is enterprise service management. And if you do a Google search on enterprise services management, you're going to find a number of different definitions, everything from a software package to enterprise infrastructure monitoring to a roadmap for tool implementations, all of which were probably right for the time that they were put out there. But in today's world, the currently widely accepted definition for enterprise service management is somewhat different. So then, what is enterprise service management? Well, let's begin by looking at ITIL and what ITIL defines as service management. ITIL defines service management as a set of specialized organizational capabilities for providing value to customers in the form of services. And ITIL goes on to say that these capabilities are in the form of the functions and the processes that are required to manage these services over a life cycle consisting of strategy, design, transition, operations, and continual improvement of those services. And ITIL further states that it is the act of transforming the organization's resources into valued services that is at the core of service management. So it's essential to understand that service management is not a process, it's not a function, it's not a system. It is the organizational capability to perform all of these in a way that provides value services. And when we talk about services, let's make sure we're all on the same page there. Again, we'll look at ITIL and look at what ITIL defines as a service. And ITIL defines a service as a means of delivering value to customers by facilitating outcomes customers want to achieve without the ownership of specific cost and risk, without having to take on those things. And of course, those customers can be internal to the organization, as is the case with many IT service providers, or they can be external to the organization. The key in both cases is that as the service provider, you are assuming all of the risk associated with the delivery and support of the service, which is a value in itself to a customer, and then hopefully you're adding some additional value in the way that you provide that outcome that your customer wants in a way that stands you apart from the other service providers. And all of this, of course, while maintaining a reasonable cost for the service provided. And notice I did not say lower cost. The value of a service isn't determined by cost alone, but also by the quality of the service as it's seen by the customer compared to the cost of the service. So then what are considered enterprise services themselves? Well, if you think of all the things you do in your organization that fit the description I just gave, areas where customers, be they employees or external, are looking to your organization to provide service that delivers the outcomes they need. Things like the IT services your organization typically provides to both employees and in many cases external customers, but also things like the internal services needed to simply run the business, things like administration, HR, purchasing, payroll, facilities and building services, physical or plant security, even food services or legal. And it's really any other service you need to provide to employees for them to be able to deliver products or services to your business customers. And of course, enterprise services can also extend to the business services you are providing yourself to external customers. For example, you might be a college that's providing online registration to classes, online book orders, things like that. All of these are examples of enterprise services. And these can be supported and managed by the concepts we're going to talk about here today. Here are some additional enterprise services you might want to think about. And if you look through this list, you'll probably see services that your organization is currently offering or things pretty close to what you're currently offering. And the question is, how well are you managing the provisioning of these services? How do you manage the requests for these services? Are you reporting on performance, on quality, on workload volume? Is there a central point of contact if there's an issue with one of these services? Or are your customers calling around to try to find the right resources to help them? So they're calling Johnny because they know Johnny did that for them last time. Or they're calling this person because that person may have got somebody to help them and they want to find out who that is. That's all what you need to manage better with enterprise service management. So now that we have a common understanding of an enterprise service, let's talk about enterprise service management and how it can help in the areas I just mentioned. Well, in my opening slide, I ask what is enterprise service management? And at Flycast Partners, we see enterprise service management as the application of the ITSM principles to other areas of an organization with the objective of achieving higher productivity, increased efficiency, effectiveness, and quality, and doing all of this in a cost-effective manner. And that means using the same processes, the same models, the same tools, the same practices that you typically use for IT to provide services for non-IT service areas within your business. And that's our definition of enterprise service management and what we're going to talk about here today. And you've all heard the adage, run IT like a business. That's what's been saying out there for years about ITIL. But what we're really saying now is run the business like IT. Oops, went too far on my page here. There we go. Run the business like IT. By applying this framework of support methodologies and tools, the organization can gain control over the flow and execution of external processes, streamline the delivery of the internal services, and free up critical resources to handle the real key business functions that are vital to the success of your organization. Just think about how much time is spent within your organization on providing internal services. And if you could reduce that number by even as little as 20%, what could you do with those resources? What other business things that really bring in revenue to your company could you focus those resources on? So it really becomes not why do this, but why not do this? Both business processes and IT processes need the same things. They need to be repeatable, they need to be measurable, they need to be controlled, and they need to be scalable to meet the changing business needs that you're going to have within your environment. Both need governance in the form of policies and controls to ensure that the processes are executed in a consistent manner and that they meet any regulatory or compliance concerns that you might have in your particular area of business. Both need to have well-defined roles and responsibilities, both for the execution of the processes themselves, but also for the governance of those processes. We need to know who's in charge. We need to know who to look to. We need to know who is managing these processes. And these roles have to all be well documented and, more importantly, understood by both the process owners, the process managers, the process participants, but all the other stakeholders, including the customers of those processes themselves. Both IT and business processes need to be based on solid processes that produce value while continually being monitored not only for quality, but also for cost, to ensure that those processes are both effective and efficient. Effective being an internal or an external measurement of whether or not they're delivering your customers what they need, and efficient being an internal measurement of are you doing this in the best way, the most cost-effective way, and really getting the most out of your resources. Both need to be continually improved, which means that you need to have metrics and reporting around key performance indicators and quality indicators to ensure that the performance and quality are being consistently monitored, that it's being reported, and that it's being baselined, a very important thing, so that you can do continual service improvement, ensuring that those service enabling processes remain consistently efficient, effective, and cost effective. These performance indicators need to be tied back to your critical business functions to ensure that you're measuring process performance in a way that's aligned with and predictable or predicting your business performance, or helps you predict your business performance. Both business and IT processes need to take advantage of technology and of automation, and do this to help you reduce the cost, improve the effectiveness and efficiency of those processes, and also standardize performance so that it's being done the same way every time, and your customers know what to expect, when to expect it, and how they're going to get that service. And then both can benefit from proven best practices for managing services. Now, most organizations have already adopted ITIL in one form or another, and on one level or another, to achieve a lot of these needs. So does it not make sense to then look at ITIL for service management framework guidance on the management of business services as well? And we think it really does. So what does ITIL offer? Well, as some of you may know, ITIL is a proven methodology that provides guidance on service management, and it can be adapted to meet the needs of departments delivering non-IT services just as well. It includes developing a strategy to determine which services should be offered, and the strategy for delivering those services and how you're going to deliver them. As an example, determining if a service will be provided using your in-house resources or from a strategic partner, or a hybrid is more often becoming the case these days. Now, one of the concepts you're beginning to hear more and more about is something called SIAM, or Service Integration and Management. And while the discussion on SIAM is a topic we will save for a later webinar, part of the concept is determining your strategy for managing services and how you're going to use suppliers or multiple service providers to deliver those services, and in some case maybe even manage other service providers for you. Again, all of this is part of your developing your service strategy, and it's all covered within the ITIL framework. ITIL also offers best practices for the creation of a service catalog, outlining the services that will be offered to customers. And then the service design portion, it includes the definition of processes, resources, and delivery standards that are required to deliver and support your services. And this area also includes service availability, service capability, all of which have to be designed into your service, regardless of whether that service is an IT service or a business service. You're going to have the same needs for processes that manage those things. Service transition ensures the controlled implementation of new services or the modification of existing services, processes, systems, infrastructure, all of the things that are necessary to support those. And then, of course, ITIL defines processes for the ongoing operation of the services themselves, including how the flow of service requests should be handled, how incidents should be handled, how problems are solved, and how to maintain the flow of information on service performance back and forth within your organization. And all of this is contained within the 26 best practice processes that are well-defined within ITIL and have well-defined roles and responsibilities. And most importantly, ITIL offers a well-defined process and approach for continual service improvement, because IT services, business services, all have to be constantly improved because your organization is maturing, it's becoming better at doing services management, and your needs for those services are changing as well. So you continually have to look back at those services and find ways to improve them to keep up. Now here's a quick example using a function from an ITIL, service desk, and applying that to an internal business service like facilities or human resources. And as you can see in all three of these examples, I can apply this function, the function of a service desk, to be the single point of contact for any one of these different services. And while the customer may be asking for different things, the processes that are needed to basically support them are the same. In this case, incident management, service request fulfillment, change management, knowledge management. For example, in an IT service, you might have a user that says, my account's locked. Can you reset my password for me? Well, that's a service request. No different really than a facilities organization being asked, you know, my desk drawer is locked. I've lost the key. Can somebody bring me a key to get into this? And another example of a service request. Or in HR, someone calling to say my benefits account is locked. How do I get that unlocked? How do I be able to view my benefits? Again, a service request to do that. And you can walk down this list, and I won't read through the whole thing here, but you can walk down this list and see examples across the board of where you can use incident, where you can use service request and change, where you can use knowledge articles to help solve these problems for each of these areas. And of course, ideally, if you can get to the point where you have one service desk, or one single point of place to call, or one portal where all of these things can be measured, can be managed together, that's really the optimum that you're looking for. As a customer, I shouldn't really care. I should have one number I can call for help. And whether I need help with my IT service, whether I need help with my desk drawer, whether I need to change my 401k, there should be one place I can go to and get help. And from there they may transition me off to other teams to help me, but I should still have that one place that I initially go look for the help that I need. Again, be that a portal or a place to call, either one. And let me give you a real world example here of a place where we've applied enterprise service management concepts and really been able to make a difference in that organization. A retail store support operation team was getting over 1,000 emails a day for non-IT store operational issues. Things like, I don't have enough receipt paper, I don't have this, I don't have, I've got a broken machine, I've got real estate issues, the toilet doesn't work, customers can't get in my front door, whatever those kinds of things might be. I didn't get promotional materials. Each one of those emails was being sent to multiple teams or people because the people in those stores didn't really know who to send it to, who could really help them. They needed help, and they needed to just reach out to everybody they could until they got some help. So as a result of this, there was really no ownership of those emails. They were going to multiple people. There was no accountability. You never knew who was really working on anything. As a result of that, there was a lot of duplication of efforts. You might have 2 or 3 teams tackling the same thing, maybe in a different way. Multiple people contacting that store to kind of help them out, which is kind of wasting the store's time because they need to be with their customers. There was no automation of responses or workflows, so if they sent an email in, they might not even know if anybody saw it or anybody was even doing anything with it. They wouldn't know the status of it. There was very little reporting going on because how do you report on emails, and how do you report on how many each group has or what they've done with them? And there was really no management view of trends or hotspots. I had one senior leader in that organization tell me that they were on a daily basis looking at hundreds of emails so that they could get a sense of what was going on in the organization and pinpoint any real points of trouble. Well, the solution for this organization was really just to implement an incident management process and use the ITSM tool that they already had to automate the creation of tickets through email monitoring. So they were still sending in an email like they were sending it before, but now it was going to a box that was monitored by the ITSM tool with some rules around that to route things. And with that, we now had incident ownership and accountability. I could now identify who had taken ownership of that incident, who was working for it, who was going to be accountable to it. If they were going to transfer it to another group, we saw that transfer and we saw that accountability shift. There was the ability to now establish some SLAs for response times because, again, I could track when that request reached the mailbox, when it was opened, how long it took for somebody to respond back to them. You could start to measure all of those things. That gave us the ability then to report metrics on the incidents, and we could break this down by stores, by regions, by departments, by categories, really any way that we needed to be able to better manage this and see where things are at. And most importantly, it allowed us to create a management dashboard that we can now highlight trending and resolution times and hotspots. So for that senior leader that was looking at hundreds of emails every day, we could now give him a dashboard where if he saw a spike in a certain category, that would tell him that there was something going on in that category that maybe he needed to focus his attention on and ignore all that other noise that was out there. So again, just one real-world example of where applying some of the principles of ITIL and some of the tools really helped bring benefit to that organization and really help get their processes more under control. So we talked about benefits. Well, what are some of the benefits of implementing enterprise services management? Well, first, let's start with improved productivity. Enterprise service management really impacts this in two ways. First, just implementing enterprise service management gets the department's internal engine firing. It allows them to start to work and things to happen more quickly and reduce their inbox clutter, all of those kinds of things. It enables faster request processing and allowing easy tracking of tickets throughout the life cycle. And then secondly, the availability of a one-stop shop for all internal services and information services, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, means faster access to the tools that other people in your organization need so that they can stay productive. They're not searching around for who to call. They're not sending emails off to different people. They're not searching around for the right number for the right help desk to help them with this problem. Another thing that we can do is, as a benefit of ESM, is we can eliminate waste. And for those of you who are familiar with Lean Six Sigma, the Japanese term muda means eliminating waste. And by simply mapping out and defining your processes that you're going to use, you can start to look for opportunities to eliminate or automate any of the non-valued activities that are going on, as well as provision your resources and headcount to better meet the needs that you have without a lot of surplus in those areas. And this can be evolved into a continuous improvement methodology to aid in long-term operational benefits of those services. And whether you call them customers or users in your organization, satisfaction increases as those services become more reliable, as roles and responsibilities are clearly defined so that, again, they know who to talk to, who to call, and the expectations of the requesters and service providers are better aligned. Some other benefits of ESM. First off, ESM gives you a map of where value is created in your organization and the processes that support it, allowing you to find, eliminate bottlenecks and inefficiencies within the organization. It gives you well-established reporting techniques and metrics to allow a higher level of operational visibility and tracking to identify problem areas. Again, thinking back to that organization we talked about, and now their ability to look at some trending to identify where there were hot spots or where there are areas where there was suddenly an increase in incidents or an increase in the request for services. Also gives you operational visibility that's critical to management for those same things we just talked about, and allowing the organization to set the right objectives, to monitor progress, and to take critical decisions when necessary. And when you have better visibility of the operations, well, then it's easier to govern what the departments are doing to ensure that they are in line with your overarching business strategies, and that they're providing the right level services and focusing on the right things. And then ESM creates an environment that depends on a more transparent, integrated, and cooperative effort to deliver services. You're no longer in a silo environment where the different groups have just different pieces they're due. If you're doing services, undoubtedly, those services are going to cross multiple sectors. So you're going to, by nature of addressing it as a service, start to effect some collaboration between those groups, smooth out the handoff between those groups, get defined responsibilities, start keeping track of who needs to act next and provide and provision services, and it turns barriers into windows and forces departments to really become more collaborative. Bringing interactions between departments also allows those interactions to be measured. It allows them to be managed and optimized, something that you simply cannot do when, again, in the case of many organizations, you're relying on emails, you're relying on phone calls to request services or to track down services, all of those things. And enterprise service management is a great strategy for, again, reducing that inbox overload and the ambiguity of using an email system in a work queue or as a work queue. By streamlining the execution of internal services, Departments can reduce the day-to-day operational expenses and devote more time and resources to change and improve external customer services and create true business value. Again, as I mentioned earlier, if you could just reduce the amount of time that your people spend taking care of themselves by checking on their benefits, by checking on their chairs, by getting their PC fixed, by getting all of those things, if you could just reduce that by 20%, you could then apply all of that towards your business customers, which is where you really need to focus. And of course, the bottom line of all of this is always cost. ESM reduces cost not only a result of the previous things that I mentioned about, but also by removing duplicate tool sets. Chances are you might have an ITSM tool, and you might have another tool set, even if it's a spreadsheet or some kind of a homegrown thing that somebody created to manage your facilities request or some of those things. And by combining that into a single enterprise-wide service that you're using or system that you're using, and along with that, perhaps standing up a portal and the back-end process management you need to support that in one software solution, you're going to reduce your costs. So who's doing this? Who's adopting ITIL principles for business service management? Well, the Help Desk Institute and IT Service Management Foundation USA released a paper in October of 2014 that showed that 51% of the organizations they surveyed had adopted or were currently planning to adopt ITIL principles for non-IT services. That's a fairly significant number. And I have to believe that by now, a year later, that a number has increased even more. I can tell you that at the ITSM Tool Users Conference this year that I went to, or one of the ones I went to, I won't mention the particular tool it was, there were almost 75% of the presentations were surrounding the use of that particular product for non-IT services. So it's definitely getting focused by organizations. A lot of it's being driven by the IT groups themselves, but a lot of it's being driven by the business groups who are starting to see the need for this and by the business service providers. And I'm willing to bet that at other ITSM tool conferences, you're going to see the same kind of thing. And in fact, you're starting to see more and more of the tool vendors themselves focus on the fact that their tool can be used as a platform for more than just IT and really try to push that and sell their product based on that, and even build in additional features and functionality to their tools to better accommodate that. And where are organizations using enterprise services management? Well, this is some data that's gathered from that same study, showing that the areas of customer service and support, and this is again looking just at anything, it's not looking at anything, it's looking at everything non-IT. So we're just talking about non-IT customer and service support, that 74% of the people who are looking at it are using it in that specific area. And as well, facilities, HR, training, financial services, and all the other areas of the organization have realized some benefit from implementing enterprise services management. So where should you start if you're looking to implement enterprise services management? Well, I've mentioned this over and over because this is one of the real low-hanging fruits of implementing this is look first at anywhere where you've got a heavy reliance on email to request support or product or service. That's a great starting point to look at to see if you could do that better through the use of a tool, or even at least have that email be monitored by a tool so that those request support are handled through the tool rather than just relying on people to review those boxes and pick up the email and do something with it. You can also look at any area where you've got a high volume of requests for a specific type of support or a specific product or a specific service. Those are good opportunities to look at how much you could get out of putting ESM in place there around that area. Another one that I personally have seen a lot of in the implementations we've done is looking at areas where services where approvals are required. Several of the ones I just recently looked at, they were doing all the approvals through emails, but the emails were just flowing back and forth between people. So there was no real audit trail that should they have to audit something and say, well, who really approved that? Who was it that approved this? When did they approve it? What exactly did they approve? None of that's really there unless someone goes back and searches through their email and happens to find that email that says that I approved this. But if you're doing this through your ITSM tool, you should be capturing all of those approvals. And again, you can still do them through email. You're just going to direct them to the tool. But now you have a copy of that email as part of the record. You have that audit trail. You're able to go back and look at that. You're also able to see how long it takes to get things approved, because that may be part of what you're looking at, which really leads us to this next area of time-sensitive support requests. Anywhere where you have requests that you need to be able to to respond in a certain amount of time or to guarantee a response in a certain amount of time, email is not going to help you provide that. It's also not going to help you track and monitor that. We're applying some process around that, and also applying your tools around that will certainly give you that capability. So here are some typical ESM opportunities you might want to think about, and we've talked about these a little bit as we've gone through this today. But certainly the area of employee onboarding and offboarding, that's a key area for this. Benefits inquiries, requests for leave or time off or paid time off. Facilities, you typically have repair requests, you have queue moves, furniture replacement, all of those kinds of things. Purchasing is another great place to look at, because here you probably got things that need approvals. You probably have things that are time sensitive. Financial accounting, another area. This is an area, again, where you probably have things that are somewhat time sensitive and that may need some approvals. So putting both the tool and a process around that really helps. Security, another area, and this can be both physical security as well as building security and access security, all of those types of things. Legal, some people may not think of this there, but you're going to have document reviews, contract reviews, all of those types of things. Requesting those and tracking those through the system can be very beneficial. Marketing, on our own site that we have within Flynet, we're recently undertaking a thing to make sure that people can request marketing materials from our portal, and put the process in place around that for service requests so that they're getting that monitored. They're able to track how much work they do and report on how much work they do and how long it takes them to actually deliver these materials. And then, of course, your administrative areas is another great area to look at. You have people who are requesting office supplies. They're requesting meeting rooms and conference rooms and presentation facilities, that sort of thing. They're looking at print. They're looking at courier services. Again, all of these are areas where you may look within your organization to see whether it makes some sense, and it probably will, to implement some form of enterprise service management around that. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of organizations that have already started to implement service management for non-IT services. A lot of those, however, are focusing on the tool and some of the basic operational processes and functions from ITIL. For example, making services available on a portal, utilizing their existing tool set, and establishing a service desk, and some basic operational processes like request fulfillment, incident management. And quite honestly, for a lot of organizations, this is all they're doing for IT. And they're really not making use of the entire framework that's there. If you look at what the ITIL offers, again, it's this full life cycle of strategy, of design, of transition, of operation. All of that is in there. And the real value comes from introducing that entire life cycle and using all of those processes that are there to really get value out of them. And we could go through what each one of these processes really provides. You know, if you need to get more information on how these would apply to enterprise service management, we'd be glad to sit down and talk with you about that. But in the interest of time today, I'm not going to go through each one of those. But just to give you an idea that there's so much more here than what most people really look at the surface of this. And really, that's not a bad thing, because what you're trying to do is improve your enterprise service management maturity level. You're really trying to move things up this ladder. You're really trying to go from the point where you're primarily reactive to the point where you're really providing value and you're really providing focus around enterprise services management. And the higher you climb in there, the more influence you're going to have on the business, the more value it's going to create for the business, or the more value, in some cases, you're going to return back to the business by freeing up resources. So if I'm at the beginning of this, I probably am only looking at incident. I'm looking at reactive problem management. I may be looking at change. I may be looking at asset management, knowledge management, and just really starting to scratch the surface of what's available for me within ITIL and within the IT service management framework that's there. As I move a little farther up that ladder of maturity, I start to now become proactive, and I start to introduce things like my service catalog. I start to build a service asset and configuration management database, perhaps. I start to look at release and deployment of, again, this doesn't just apply to IT. You can apply this to a business service as well. I start to look at service level management. I start to now become proactive in my problem management and use things like event management to help me predict when issues are going to occur and solve those incidents ahead of time, which is proactive problem management and what proactive problem management is really all about. As I move a little farther up, I start to get more customer focused now. And now I want to look at those processes that help me do some things around capacity and availability to make sure that I always have enough capacity for that service to deliver to my customers, that I'm making the service available to the right people at the right times. I want to start to look at my business relationships that I might have. I might want to expand my service catalog a little further. If I were just doing IT, I might now be looking at rolling out a business catalog. But if I'm doing this in enterprise services management, I might just want to look at what other services I can provide and where I need to go. Again, as I get to this level of maturity, I'm probably starting to look at some more areas of supplier management and what I might be able to use suppliers to deliver some of these services that are more commodity oriented perhaps. And I'm going to start to do as part of that some more financial understanding around service costing, what it really costs me to deliver those services, and using the processes within ITIL that address that. As I become more business focused, now I'm going to start to look at things like continuity management. And, we talk a lot within IT about IT service continuity and how we'd provide that service if something were to fail. But think about the other services your organization provides, and if there were to be some sort of a significant failure in your organization, how you would provide those services back to your employees. Demand management and financial management, I might start to look here at how I'm charging back for those services. Do I need to charge back for them? Should there be charges associated with those? And then finally, when I get to the more higher levels of my ESM maturity, I'm really starting to look more now at my service portfolio and my service strategy and the processes around those, so that I make sure that I'm planning ahead, that I'm looking at services that are out in the future, that I'm starting to build that portfolio of where we need to go next with those services, and then starting to develop service strategies around those as to how I'll deliver those when the time comes. So again, this is a journey. You don't do this all at once. You really want to carve this off in smaller pieces and implement enterprise service management much the same way that you want to implement IT service management, by doing a series of plan, do, check, act exercises to start to move you up this ladder. And while ITIL is a predominant framework that organizations look to for guidance when they're implementing enterprise services management, there are others. And these are not necessarily alternatives, but really they're complementary to ITIL. It doesn't say that I should choose Six Sigma over Kaizen or COVID or knowledge-centered support, any of those kinds of things. It really says that I can do combinations of all of these to really make up my enterprise service management practice. Six Sigma and Lean Six Sigma, those are good examples where there's a recognized framework for measuring quality and improving process performance. And it's often used right along with ITIL for continual service improvement, as is Kaizen. So I mentioned knowledge-centered support, KCS. That's another framework that complements ITIL. And there are also standards such as ISO 20000, ISO 15504. And while these offer guidance on specific areas within IT, they can also be used as guidance to help you determine your capabilities around both enterprise service or IT service management and enterprise service management by looking at a set of defined standards and see whether or not you meet those standards. And you can do this whether you're planning to go for those certifications or just want to compare something against a standard. We get calls all the time from customers who say, I want to know if I'm ITIL compliant. Well, and I want to be ITIL certified for this process. Well, ITIL is not a standard, it's a framework, so I can't tell you if you're compliant. I can't tell you if you meet the certification levels for that as an organization. What I can tell you is whether or not you meet certain standards that align with ITIL, and those are things that you'll find in ISO 20000 and ISO 15504. So again, I can apply those to ITIL, but I can also apply those towards enterprise service management and kind of use those same standards to benchmark where I am. And then I didn't mention COBIT yet, but again, that's another one that offers additional guidance on governance more specifically that can be applied to non-IT processes as well to make sure that you're in compliance with any regulatory issues that you might have. So where do you begin in all of this? Well, go back to what I said earlier about organizational capabilities, and if those start with focusing on your capabilities around people, process, and technology, and how you use those to deliver and support your enterprise services. For example, in the area of people, do you have the people with the right skills and experience to deliver and support the business services you provide or that your organization needs? And if not, what training do you provide to them to improve their skills and experience? Do they need better access to knowledge? If the answer to any of these is, or all of these is no, then you might want to look at could these be augmented or perhaps even better provided by a third party or a partner? or looking at some other area to get those people, to get those skills, to get those experience. You also want to look at your processes that you use to enable the services. Are they efficient? Are they effective? Do they deliver the quality that's required by the customers of those services, whether those customers, again, are internal or external? And is there a continual service process in place, and is it, as it implies, being continually exercised to look at opportunities to improve those services? Do you have sufficient governance in place to ensure that processes are properly followed and they're compliant with any internal policies and any external regulatory requirements that you have to meet? And frankly, that's an area where a lot of organizations fail. They go ahead, they design their processes, they roll them out, but they really don't put in place any governance around them. And you have to have that governance to make sure that once you put a process in place, it is being followed and that people are adhering to it, and where they're not, you understand the reasons that they're not, so that you can go back and look to see whether or not you may need to redesign that process or revisit that policy. And then what about the technology that you use? Those technologies, are they fit for purpose? And perhaps more importantly, do they provide the warranty that's needed to make them fit for use? And warranties, things like availability, capacity, speed of delivery, all of those kinds of things. And finally, is there an opportunity to use technology to better automate the delivery of the services you provide, so that, again, you provide them in a more consistent manner and at a lower cost? And when you look at all of these capabilities, there's really a sweet spot that's right in the center, that where everything comes together and where you're able to really deliver services in the most efficient, effective, and cost-effective manner. And the goal of enterprise service management is to expand this sweet spot and make the most out of your people and processes and technology for both IT and non-IT services by expanding your capabilities in all of these areas. So we go back and look at our definition of service management, that it's a set of organized capabilities for providing values and customer services. That's really what we're trying to do. We're really trying to do with enterprise services management, expand those areas, expand your capabilities, make sure that you're properly transforming your resources. Our ESM service is targeted at helping you improve your organization capabilities in those areas. We offer planning workshops to help with that, to help set your goals, your objectives, make sure that they're aligned to your business processes. We have process maturity assessments we can come in and do for you. That will help look at the processes that you have, see how mature they are, where you are on that process maturity scale. We can come in and help do process design and deliver some very, very detailed process documentation that is more than just a workflow. It's more than just a Visio diagram. It really ties in the governance, the controls that you need, the roles and responsibilities, RACI charts as to who's doing each piece of it. Really gives you something that you can work from versus a diagram that somebody pins up in their cube and probably never looks at again or never uses again. And then we can also offer you continual service improvement guidance on how to really put in place a continual service improvement program that is continual, that it isn't just a case where you get some consultants to come in once a year and look at your processes, but that all year long you're looking at your processes, you're doing continual service improvement, and you're setting yourselves up for success and ensuring your success in a programmable or a programmatic basis, a programmatic basis. So please feel free to reach out to us if you need help in any of these areas. We'd be glad to come out and talk with you about that, talk with you more about our capabilities with enterprise services management. So at this point, I'll turn it back and see if we have any questions that you might have regarding some of the issues we brought up here or other areas around enterprise services management you might like to know more about.
Doesn't look like we have any questions in the queue, but if anybody has any questions, go ahead and ask those now. And Chuck, I see another slide up there.
Actually, that second slide up there is one that we've already covered, and I kind of pulled out, and it shouldn't be there, so I'm going to take it down.
Okay, fair enough. I just wanted to make sure.
You've just seen a blooper if you're watching, folks.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much, Chuck, for another great presentation. And should anyone have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us directly at 1-844-FLYCAST. That's 1-844-359-2278. Or simply email us at sales@flycastpartners.com. And we'll be more than happy to help you out with any questions that you may have. So with that being said, I'm going to thank all of you for taking time out of your very busy day. And with that, have a great weekend.